All right, let's dive in. Today we're looking at this guide called How to Start a Startup, a comprehensive guide from ideation to release. And I gotta say, there's some really cool stuff in here, some eye-opening advice, a lot to think about. And it got me thinking about, well, how many people are actually out there trying to do this whole startup thing? Because the guide mentions that, get this, back in 2022, there are already like 150 million startups out there, with something like 50 million more popping up every single year. So does that mean launching a startup in 2024? I mean, is it even a good idea?
Well, that's where things get kind of interesting, right? Because what the guide points out is that while it might seem like everything's been done, every idea is taken, real innovation, it's not always about inventing something completely new. It's often about finding a fresh perspective on existing ideas and making them better. And the best example I can think of is like the whole rise of artificial intelligence, right? We went from these like sci-fi concepts to neural networks that like mimic the human brain. And it all happened by adapting and evolving the original idea.
So it's not so much about reinventing the wheel, it's more about finding a better way to roll it, I guess.
Exactly. You got to think of it this way. Imagine you're really into, I don't know, like habit tracking, and you want to build an app.
Yeah.
But the app store is flooded with them, right?
Oh, yeah.
But what if your app, it offered some unique feature that addresses a really specific need that those other apps just don't? That's what sets you apart.
Yeah, that's your edge.
Exactly.
Okay, so instead of just another habit tracker, maybe it integrates with like smart home devices to automatically adjust your environment based on your habits. Or maybe it uses AI to personalize habit building strategies.
Now you're getting it. And that's exactly what the guide emphasizes, this need to really analyze those existing solutions, figure out like what are their strengths, what are their weaknesses, and then really zero in on that gap that you can fill. That's how you make a splash even in a super crowded market.
Man, this is already like making me rethink my whole approach. It's not about having this like never before seen idea. It's about the never before executed approach to like a problem that already exists. I love that.
Absolutely. And once you have that like winning idea, the guide really lays out this like step-by-step roadmap to make it real, turn it into something real. And it all starts with like really thorough market research.
Yeah, this is where we like roll up our sleeves and get down to business, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And the guide, it really hammers home this importance of truly understanding your target audience. What are their pain points? What keeps them up at night? What are they hoping to achieve? What solutions are they already using and what's missing? This information is like pure gold when it comes to shaping your product or service.
Okay, so we've got to like dig deep, get to know our audience inside and out. But then what? How do we actually like go from this idea to an actual business?
Well, there's a few crucial, I guess you could say, building blocks according to the guide. First, you need to like define your brand identity, right? What makes you unique? What message do you want to send to the world? Then there's the business plan, which is, kind of your roadmap for success. It outlines your goals, your strategies, and how you plan to actually make money.
And of course, like the big question, the elephant in the room, how do we get the money to actually make this happen?
Yeah.
Especially if we're starting with, limited funds.
And that's where this concept of the lean business model comes in. It's all about using your existing resources really wisely and finding these creative ways to like minimize expenses. The guide actually has some really fascinating strategies for bootstrapping your startup.
Okay, yeah, this is where I get really interested. Can you give us some examples?
Yeah, so one of the biggest things is leveraging your existing skills in your network. Are you like a coding whiz, a design guru, a marketing master? Like put those talents to work and think about like who, right? Your network could be such a valuable resource for support, advice, and maybe even future collaborators.
So instead of thinking, I need to hire someone for this, think, who do I already know who can help me with this?
Exactly. And don't forget about all the free resources that are out there, especially for startups. There are tons of free or discounted tools, everything from project management software to like design platforms and online communities and educational resources. Those are also invaluable. You can learn from like experienced entrepreneurs and get insights that you might not find anywhere else.
It's good to be reminded that we don't have to go it alone. There's a whole world of support out there for new entrepreneurs.
For sure. Absolutely. And then there's bootstrapping itself, which is like the art of stretching every dollar as far as it can go. The guide suggests like cutting office costs by working remotely or using co-working spaces, and finding creative solutions to reduce cost whenever possible.
So we're scrappy, we're resourceful, we're making every penny count, but eventually we'll probably need more than just, bootstrapping, right? Especially if we want to really grow.
You're right, and that's where the guide suggests looking into alternative financing options. Things like crowdfunding. It's a great way to raise capital, but also validate your idea and even start building a community around your product.
I've always thought of crowdfunding as kind of like a popularity contest for ideas. You're pitching your concept to the world and seeing if people are excited enough to actually back it.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And there are so many platforms for crowdfunding these days, right? Like Kickstarter, Indiegogo. The guide also recommends, exploring grant opportunities and contests that are specifically for startups. You might be surprised by how much support is out there.
Okay, so even if we start with limited funds, there are still ways to get the resources that we need. But, let's be real for a second. Starting a business is a massive undertaking. There must be more to it than just having a great idea and some cash, right?
Oh, absolutely. You're 100% right. The guide goes into a lot more detail about, the actual process of building a startup. And that's what we'll, kind of dive into next.
So we were just talking about all the different ways to, fund a startup. But I'm curious about the actual process of, building the product itself. Where do we even begin?
Well, the guide, it really stresses the importance of creating what they call a minimum viable product, or MVP for short. It's basically a stripped-down version of your product that, showcases the core functionality without all the extra bells and whistles.
Oh, okay. So why not just, go all out and build the full product right from the start?
Because an MVP, it lets you test your concept in the real world, get feedback from potential users, and then refine your product based on, actual data, not just your assumptions.
So it's like a sneak peek, like a little taste test to see if people are, hungry for more.
Exactly. Yeah, you got it.
Yeah.
And once you have your MVP, rigorous testing is absolutely crucial, throughout that entire development process. This is where you iron out any kinks, ensure a smooth user experience, and ultimately, make sure your product delivers on its promises.
So we're not just talking about, looking for bugs, right? It's about making sure the product actually solves the problem we set out to tackle and that it, aligns with our vision.
Yeah, you nailed it. The guide actually talks about two common testing methodologies, waterfall and agile. Waterfall is the more traditional approach, where you plan everything in detail up front and then execute each step, sequentially. Agile is more iterative, meaning you develop the product in these small increments, continuously testing and getting feedback along the way.
So waterfall is like following a recipe step by step, while agile is more like experimenting in the kitchen, tasting as you go and adjusting the flavors along the way.
I like that. That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is the guide emphasizes how testing, it's not just a technical task. It's also about understanding your users, anticipating their needs, and really creating a positive experience for them.
So user feedback is king.
Absolutely, yeah. And this next point, this one really resonated with me. The guide, it suggests finding your community early on. Starting a business, it can be a lonely journey. So surrounding yourself with like-minded people, mentors, other entrepreneurs, it can make a huge difference.
Yeah, it's like having a built-in cheering section, right? A group of people who get what you're going through and can offer encouragement when things get tough.
Precisely. Networking events, online forums, even social media platforms, those can be great places to connect with fellow entrepreneurs and build that support system. Then, once you've fine-tuned your product and rallied your community, it's time for the big moment, launching your website.
This is where we finally get to show the world what we've been working on.
The guide really emphasizes the importance of a well-planned launch. It's about ensuring a seamless experience for your customers, gathering that early feedback, and being prepared to, handle any unexpected challenges that might pop up.
It sounds like a carefully choreographed dance, where every step needs to flow smoothly to create this, captivating performance.
Yeah, I like that. But here's the thing. The guide makes it clear that the launch, it's just the beginning. It's the starting line of a marathon, not a sprint.
So we celebrate the launch, but then we lace up our running shoes and get ready for the long haul. I see what you mean.
Exactly. And that brings us to the importance of continuous monitoring and analysis. It's all about tracking, those key metrics, customer acquisition, engagement, sales, to really understand how your business is performing and to spot areas for improvement.
So it's not enough to just launch the product and hope for the best. We have to be data driven, learning from our successes and our mistakes and constantly adapting to the market.
You're absolutely right. And that's where the guide dives into this concept of scaling. which is all about strategically expanding your business for, increased growth and profitability.
So scaling, it's a word you hear all the time in the startup world. But what does it actually mean? How do we know when our startup is ready to, take that leap?
Yeah, those are really good questions. And the guide actually gives us some helpful signs to look for. First, you need a solid team in place, one that's not just skilled, but also experienced, capable of consistently delivering that high quality work.
So it's not just a group of, friends with a good idea anymore. We're talking about a team of professionals who can handle the increased workload and complexity that comes with scaling.
Exactly, yeah. Second, you need to have demonstrated a consistent track record of hitting those project milestones. This shows that, your processes are effective and that your team can actually execute on your vision.
So you got to prove you can walk the walk, not just talk the talk.
Exactly, yeah. Third, and this is crucial, you need financial stability. Scaling requires investment, so you need to have the resources to support that expansion without, putting your entire business at risk.
Right, you can't jump into the deep end without knowing you can swim.
And then finally, your infrastructure. It needs to be robust enough to handle the growth. This means your technology, your systems, your processes, everything needs to be able to, seamlessly accommodate a larger customer base, increase traffic, and those, expanded operations.
It's like making sure our spaceship has enough fuel and a skilled crew to navigate a longer, more complex journey.
I love that, yeah. So once you've determined that your startup is ready to scale, the guide outlines a few different strategies you can use. One option is seeking additional funding, maybe from venture capitalists or angel investors, to really fuel that growth.
So we're talking about bringing in experienced investors who believe in our vision and are willing to bet on our success.
Exactly. Another strategy is exploring new marketing channels to reach a wider audience. Think about things like video marketing, influencer collaborations, or even paid advertising campaigns.
So we're essentially amplifying our message and getting it in front of more people who might be interested in what we're doing.
Right, yeah. And as you grow, you'll likely need to invest in more advanced technology or upgrade your infrastructure to handle that increased demand.
Got to make sure our spaceship can handle warp speed.
Exactly. The guide also mentions the possibility of developing new products or services that complement your core offering. This can be a great way to expand your reach and provide more value to your customers.
So we're not just growing bigger, we're growing smarter, offering more of what people love.
And finally, as your startup scales, building a strong management team becomes absolutely essential. You need experienced leaders who can guide your company through this, this next phase of growth.
So we're assembling a team of all-stars who have been there, done that, and can help us navigate the inevitable challenges that come with scaling a business.
Precisely. Scaling a startup, it's definitely a complex and demanding process, but it's also incredibly rewarding. It's about taking your vision to that next level.
Yeah.
Making a bigger impact, and ultimately, achieving that sustainable success.
So to wrap things up, I guess, we've learned that starting a successful startup, even with, limited resources, it's entirely possible. It all starts with a great idea, a lean approach, and a lot of hard work. We talked about the importance of market research, branding, building an MVP, testing thoroughly, finding your community, and launching strategically.
And we explored how scaling is, a continuous journey, not just a destination. It's all about staying flexible, learning as you go, and constantly adapting to make sure your startup stays ahead of the curve.
This deep dive has been, it's been packed with some incredible insights. It's definitely given me a lot to think about, and I'm feeling pretty motivated to, take my own ideas to that next level.
That's awesome to hear. If I could leave you with one final thought, it would be to never underestimate the power of, your own unique skills and passions. Combine those with the insights we've discussed today, and you have the potential to, solve real problems and make a really meaningful impact on the world.
That's a great note to end on. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us. Remember, the learning never stops. Keep exploring, keep pushing those boundaries, and keep chasing those big dreams. And who knows, maybe someday we'll be featuring your startup success story right here on The Deep Dive.